This is KLEAN Radio, and it starts right now.
Hey, it does start right now. Hi, everybody. I'm Pat O'Brien. Welcome to KLEAN Radio on a beautiful Sunday night. Big sports weekend. Wow. Andrew Spanswick was here. He's actually in Vegas.
Yeah, that was quite something.
I called him yesterday afternoon, and I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm in my room watching movies. You know, the biggest day in Vegas. So you got some rest anyway, right?
Yeah, well, that was, I thought I'd go up there and have some fun, and I walked around a little bit, and I was like, no, I'm just going to go to my room and sleep. I was like, it's so tired.
Get a pencil and paper out tonight. Does anybody use pencil and paper? Whatever you write with, put it on your smartphone, because I'm going to give out the numbers later just a little bit so you can call in. Our call-in number is, though, 800-222-5222. It's like calling us. You just dial 800-222-5222. And we're up and down all over the coast. We're in New York on WOR. The Mets have come back to earth, but they're still leading the National League East. They won a pitcher's duel today against the Nationals, or they lost it, against the Nationals, and that's Berman's fault. You can call his radio show and tell him, and I said that when they start going down, it's Berman's fault, right?
It wasn't our fault.
Well, not our fault. They were on a roll when we came on. We have two great guests tonight after our first one. We have three great guests. Two transgender pioneers. Can we call you that?
Yeah.
Don't nod. Yeah. Just say yes or no.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And a pioneer of another sort in a second. Andrew, a new drug is on the street. Maybe it's not new.
No, it's actually a couple years old.
Yeah, but now it's getting some buzz because it's so cheap. Flakka.
Yeah, they keep changing the molecules a little bit, but it's the same general type of drug. So.
And if you're going to say no, this is one to say no to, right?
Yeah, why anybody would want to take a drug that makes you want to have sex with trees, I don't know. That just...
No, there was a time,
There was a
couple beers.
Yeah, but you also think people are chasing you while you're doing it.
Well, is it like PCP a little bit? Or?
It's just, there's so many different synthetic alkaloids that are being created that cause all sorts of reactions. Most of them are simple spin-offs of other drugs, and they add a molecule here or there. Problem is that, of course, these things are made in China largely, in the Philippines. And these drugs...
It's cheap, right?
Very cheap. I think its street sale is like $5 a dose or something. And people are smoking them out of, and I predicted this, I'd like to say, out of vaporizers.
You talked about
they're using vaporizing oils, and they're putting it in these drugs, synthetic drugs, and different vaping oils.
We're on Facebook, facebook.com/KLEAN Radio. We get caught up in a lot of conversations about it, Andrew, but the problem now is, and it's what we deal with at the KLEAN centers, and that's there's so many pieces to the pillow.
Puzzle.
To the puzzle. No, piece. I was going to say so many layers.
Feathers to the pillow.
No, let me come up with a better one.
Okay.
There's so many layers to the quilt. How's
Patches to the quilt.
What's wrong with me? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. That now it used to be, the guy's freaking out on acid. Now he's freaking out because his dad beat him up, and he's drinking because of that, or he's gay and he can't deal with it, or whatever, and or he's mean. I can't deal. I went through it. So, and so addiction treatment has changed just since 1967.
Well,
you wouldn't even recognize.
Yeah, my takeaway is, one, things have changed a lot, but two, a lot of things really haven't changed. There's still this huge stigma, and there's a lot of shame-based issues around addiction and treatment. We're seeing this more and more, and now we're having all this crazy influx of drugs where we can't even identify half of them, far less control them. So if society's really going to make an effective change with regard to addiction and addiction treatment and stopping people from self-medicating for other problems like mental illnesses and other issues that are affecting them emotionally and in their thoughts, we're going to have to develop some pretty ingenious and new ways of early intervention.
This is KLEAN Radio, facebook.com/KLEAN Radio. We're at KLEAN Radio on Twitter. I'm POB Pat O'Brien because somebody got my name, so I have to do that. Andrew is at KLEAN CEO.
The most liked Twitter name on Earth.
Our show call on Earth. Our show call-in number is 800-222-5222, and we have a 24/7 hotline, so to speak. The treatment center number is 888-601-6040. 24 hours a day. You can call there if you have any problems. Well, I'm reading this book called So You Were Publicly Shamed, and it's probably one of the best books I've ever read. And it's about how the internet and Facebook can shame you into craziness. And, Twitter just came out, their CEO said, we suck at controlling this. And Facebook now is coming out with some guidelines because people have threatened to commit suicide. And the whole idea of shame brings me to our next two guests who are not shamed anymore. But I'm sure you went through it, right? Two transgender, gorgeous people. Calpernia, do we have to say your middle name as well?
You don't have to. Calpernia Addams is plenty.
All right. Calpernia Addams and Candis Cayne.
Hello.
Do you have a middle name?
No.
Okay.
You're so Hollywood, Candis.
Two pioneers in the transgender movement. Let's get some terms out of the way. And the Bruce Jenner thing has put this thing out in the open, and that's, by the way, what has the Bruce Jenner thing done for your lives?
Well, I'm on a lot more radio shows and television shows because of it. But I mean, people are just, anytime there's kind of there's a talk about it, people want to know, he was, we can still say he, apparently. It's weird for me being a trans woman. And once somebody says they're trans, it's hard for me to use that pronoun. But, he's made it out there in the public.
It's helped though, right? Calpernia?
Well, sure. I mean, we keep having amazing breakthroughs like Laverne Cox and everything, and Candis and all that. But Bruce is really interesting because he comes from a previous generation. So I think there's this whole category of people who might not relate to these 20-something, 30-something trans women who are going to watch Bruce go through this transition and feel a lot more empathy. So it's just
know him as a superstar athlete.
Right.
Before.
Yeah,
so that's
very male,
male.
Definitely,
best
won the
athlete in the world.
decathlon. Yeah, now all of a sudden he wants to be
I
a
was
woman.
there. I always kid Bruce, a friend of mine for 30, 40 years. I always kid him. I said, you'd be a nobody if that dude wouldn't have handed you that flag. And he went around and got on the picture of cover of Wheaties and everything. Candis, or Calpernia, didn't you? Which one of you wrote the worst questions to ask a transgender? But you did, yeah.
Years
did
ago,
did you get drunk and do a YouTube video?
Well, when YouTube was in the early days, I got home from a photo shoot, had a trigger warning. I had a little whiskey, and people are so disrespectful that I made this funny list of questions I was sick of people asking me.
Sure.
And it went viral. It was like an early YouTube viral video, and I just kind of let people have it.
Well, I mean, and what year was this?
Oh, gosh, like 2004 or 5.
Which in the transgender movement is like a century ago, right, Candis?
Yeah, I mean, a lot has happened since then.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of all of a sudden, it was few and far between parts. I got on Dirty Sexy, and then it was kind of crazy how it was out there in the universe, and it started becoming more of a a topic of conversation.
Dallas Buyers Club kind of helped out, right?
Sure.
In fact, Jared mentioned you in his Oscar speech.
That was really amazing. I've had the opportunity to consult several actors. I consulted Lee Pace, who played me in the film Soldier's Girl, Felicity Huffman in Transamerica, and then Jared Leto in Dallas Buyers Club. And it's been great sort of improving our portrayals in that way, but I'm really excited as a trans actress myself to try taking on some of these roles. So fingers crossed for that.
I mean, a lot has happened as trans actresses. Like when I first started auditioning, it was a constant education to the writers and producers to tell them how to talk, what to say, what not to say.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, it still is, but not as much. I mean, it was
There's a lot of confusion
crazy
out there, right? I mean, people still think that sexual identity and gender identity are the same thing, right? I mean, there's, your average person doesn't seem to understand the difference.
They think orientation and gender identity are the same, but they're different.
Yeah, I mean, that was like a huge thing with this Bruce Jenner interview. People can't wrap their heads around the idea that Bruce is transitioning to be a woman and still likes women, and I don't understand it. And it's
or even the idea that he might be asexual, the idea that he could actually not be feeling sexual while he's transitioning.
I think he said I'm asexual because he doesn't want to answer those questions while he's going through this transition. I mean, that's my...
Now, how scorned our guests are Calpernia Addams. Wasn't Calpernia a Shakespeare?
Julius Caesar's wife,
Oh,
yes.
okay, yeah, all right. And Candis Cayne.
Yeah.
That's a cool name, Candis Cayne.
Thank you.
Now, you both performed as, what did we call you guys back then?
Showgirls.
Well, I know. Come on. I wasn't born yesterday. You were kind of freak shows, right? Way back in the, maybe not YouTube, but back in the day, you know.
We, and I'm just speaking for myself, but I know this to be true for Calpernia, are artists. So
No, I understand that. But
right. And so, but we're in a community that never saw us as freak shows. So for us, we were great performers that actually were a part of a community. So we were, maybe to the general public, the idea of what we were freak shows, but then they would meet us and they would see that we're just normal.
Yeah.
But I mean, there used to be this bar over on Ventura Boulevard that straight people would go, and it would. And please shoot me if I.
I mean, this has been going on
wrong.
since the beginning of time. Too.
I know, and it
it's
would
not
go
like something
for
just
the
occurred on Hollywood Boulevard, right? I mean, we've always had an interesting subsection of gender expression between heterosexual and homosexual. Goes across the board in a continuum. And so, there's always been this in culture, and different cultures deal with it different ways. There's some cultures that have people that are openly transgendered and valued as part of their culture, especially in the Philippines, I think, and some other Asia.
Right,
India.
Thailand.
Right.
But I was getting to, so I'm not
French Polynesia.
Yeah, I was Polynesian, baby. No, I was getting to the point of how much has changed. That now you guys, transparent. I don't know what your opinion of that show is, but all my friends are on it, so be careful. But that's been a big, hit show, and it won the Golden Globe or Emmy or something, and that has brought the conversation up too. So it's my point is that it's really not a quote unquote freak show anymore.
Right.
That you guys are being studied and looked at and wondered about, and now people are seeing that there's so many. And Andrew's an expert on this. There's so many pieces to this puzzle that you guys have been through. The courage that you've had is astounding to me, and I congratulate you for it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I always thought of myself as an exotic bird, more so than a freak. I always fully realized that my life circumstances were far outside of what most people go through in a literal way. But I think a lot of people resonate with like feeling ugly in high school and longing after certain partners but not being recognized, or wanting to change your body. People, and they do end up resonating with all those things once they learn that that's a part of the process and that it's not that tabloid Jerry Springer kind of thing that they think it is.
Well, I mean, let's take a call because we want to get into somebody called Trucker Patty. Is that really your first name, or are you a trucker named Patty?
I know Trucker Patty.
Okay, hi Patty. It's Pat and Andrew and Candis and Calpernia, and you have a question. Go ahead.
Two of my favorite ladies in
go.
one place at the same time. I can't believe it. I hung out with Candis at Outfest last year, and
I
Calpernia
remember.
and I have actually never met. I have hung out with her very dear friend, Andrea James, but Calpernia and I have been Facebook friends for years.
Yes.
I transitioned in the 70s. I'm one of the oldsters, and back then I had my surgery in 82, and I ran off into the world and didn't tell anybody for 25 years because you just didn't do it. You were talking about freak shows. I was in a freak show. I was in a show on Bourbon Street in New Orleans.
Well, everybody stop. I don't think it's a freak show. Go ahead. Okay, this is called publicly shamed.
I didn't mean to.
Your fault,
I
Candis.
know it's my fault.
God, stay off me.
Right?
Go ahead.
This is a place called Papa Joe's on Bourbon Street, and it was a female impersonator club, and that's basically what they considered us. But
Did you get your surgery at Tulane?
did I what?
Did you get your surgery at Tulane? Did you?
No, I had got my surgery in San Francisco at St. Luke's Hospital in 1982.
How long was it before you went public with it, or
semi-public? I was, as we say in the community, I was in stealth mode for 25 years. I came back out in 2007. I had married a couple of times. Neither of my husbands. It's a long story, and you got two much more fascinating women on there to talk to.
No, I like the fact. Are you rolling right now or no?
No, I retired last year.
Oh, okay. Well, you might want to change the name to Retired Trucker Patty.
Yeah. But what I called in about was, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize. I try to advocate for transgender youth, and the fact is that when it comes to drug addiction, transgendered youth percentage-wise are at higher risk than any other group of kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And suicide. In fact, when I was at Tulane, I worked on, there was a study done, and the study was on actually post-op suicide rates of transgendered people at that time, and it was still above 25%. And Tulane actually stopped doing surgeries because of that, because they couldn't figure out really how to create a support group or what the psychological issues might be that need to be addressed to stop that high suicide rate. And so
I was basically told by one of the psychiatrists I had to go to that if I wanted to have a normal life, that the best thing for me, because I would have no trouble passing, would be just to never tell anybody. And living with that secret totally screwed up my life.
All right, Patty, we got to go. We'll talk about it, but the girls are happy to hear you. Their faces lit up when you came on the phone, so thanks for calling in.
I love and adore those girls. They're doing wonderful things, and I can't wait till the next time I see them or talk to them.
I'm going to let you know. There she goes, Trucker Patty.
Bye, Patty.
But, I think everybody's finding out that there's acceptance now, and to some extent, which is, and at least compassion.
Well, I think it's gotten at least to the point where, information can get out without people just shrugging away from it. And that's, I think, what leads to isolation, drug addiction, and depression, and suicide sometimes.
All right, we're going to come back. Candis Cayne's our guest, Calpernia Addams. We come back, we'll ask Calpernia if she can recite all the words of the Vagina song. We'll be right back.
Don't let addiction to drugs or alcohol steal another year of your life. KLEAN Treatment Center provides world-class addiction assistance that also treats the underlying causes and provides vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean. Live, kind, professional help is standing by to provide immediate assistance or to simply answer questions and provide guidance. If you or someone you care about is suffering from addiction, take action now. Log on to cleantreatmentcenters.com. That's clean with a K.
Hey, welcome back. Pat O'Brien here along with Andrew Spanswick, our addiction specialist. Our number is 800-222-5222, 800-222-5222, facebook.com/KLEAN Radio. We'll get that operating again next week at KLEAN Radio. And our treatment center is 888-601-6040. Candis Cayne and I are about the... I don't know. Something's happening here, right? Candis Cayne and Calpernia Addams.
Oh, boy. Is that your best line?
Well,
Something's happening here?
Well, don't you think? There's a little fire here.
Is that a good line? I've never heard that one before. So.
No, the good... I can't see it. I said a good line. Candis Cayne and Calpernia Addams. Do you consider yourself pioneers in the transgender movement?
I think so.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. Well, for me, it was just doing what I did and for the love of it, and because I worked for so long, and did make something of it. I realized that hard work really pays off, and a lot of girls that are in my situation, they don't have the opportunity or the support or the background to really try to let things go and work for a dream of theirs. And so I was doing this award show at one point after Dirty Sexy, and they played a scene with me and Donald Sutherland, and the entire room stood up and started applauding, and that was kind of my light bulb moment that it wasn't about me anymore. It was about what was happening socially to push our people forward.
Is it easier to be a trans activist? Is that the right word, Calpernia?
Oh, well, gosh, I think activism is always born out of... I know, but
you spoke at Oxford, and you're all over the world now.
Yeah, it's not easy because activism is the result of struggle. You become an activist because things are tough and things are awful and you want to try to make them better. But I've been grateful that I've had these amazing opportunities to work with Eve Ensler and do the first all trans vagina monologues, or to speak at Oxford University or places all over the world, spend a month in Australia educating. And it's been great to push back against all that negative stuff that's been so tough for the early part of my life.
Do you think that the transgender movement is going to separate from gay rights in general? Do you think that they're actually different issues and that they've just had a common home?
Well, I mean,
It better not, right?
No, I mean, I think that we are all so entrenched in each other's communities that,
right.
There's some members of each community that want to separate. But I think in general, I mean, we've been around each other since the Stonewall riots.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So it's been a while.
We're with each other. It's part of our community.
Yeah, and I think what people are punishing with homophobia is like people who are not conforming to gender norms. Like if a gay guy acts really feminine, he gets punished by society, and that's because he's not conforming to gender norms. Or if a girl's really butch. And what they're punishing about trans people, too, is that we're even more so crossing gender norms and boundaries. So I think there are a lot of shared issues if you want to see them.
Of course, we're out here in California, and it's a little different than, Knoxville, Iowa,
right,
and South Dakota, and where Trucker Patty is in Missouri, I think, right? So the attitudes are different. How do we change? And I'm not trying to separate those people out there because they're just not... they don't see it, you don't see a lot of
that's why these
transgender
television
farmers
shows and transgender farmers.
I'm serious.
You'd be surprised.
Really?
No, I'm teasing. They probably are.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's why it's so important that these big shows are happening with, that kind of normal size trans people, because it shows people in Middle America or places. Even on the coasts, there's just as much hate here as there is in Iowa. It shows them that.
I think a lot of people don't really understand the scope of the issue and how many people are involved directly, indirectly. And one stat that I found fascinating, and this is not related to this, but hermaphrodites in the United States are the same number of people with red hair. Just to give you an idea of how many people have issues. You're right. So, when you talk about sexual identity, right, and then gender identity, I mean, here's two things that, you have a huge group of people that are born and they don't even know what gender they're born as. And so, this is coming up and more, and people are becoming more accepting that there's actual real physiological issues that create this. It's not just some mental quirk or something.
Well, isn't it the oldest story in the book? Like, people just, they reject anything they don't understand. It's happened with every culture, everything that's different.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear, and also a lot of people's power base and belief systems are based on antiquated ideas that were set up to oppress people.
There's also bigender and queer gender, and there's all these different things. Andrew, explain. Andrew and I were talking earlier about this is that room green? I'm colorblind.
It's supposed to be green, but it's red.
Okay.
So
in the red room.
The red room.
But there are so many pieces to this because it's all, it's not just about, suddenly I want to be a woman or suddenly I want to be, there's feelings that happen early in your life and you have no idea what they are or where they're coming from. And
there's been a lot of studies about different things. Like, people believe that there's medical causes and the amount of testosterone that the zygote's exposed to prior to developing into a fetus. And, we're learning more and more. We know so little about things like this, really, from a medical standpoint. The science behind it is just starting to give us some explanations. But we do know that, that this isn't just some psychiatric disorder as it was claimed to be for so long. We know that there's actual physiological reasons that people are on the spectrum of gender and sexual identity disorder, taking those two apart. So, it's very interesting. I think that the fact that people are finally getting to be able to talk about how they feel and then find solutions for how they feel instead of suffering. And that's what we see. I still see so many clients that are just suffering with basic identity issues, far less really complex and integrated identity issues of what gender they are, and how does their sexuality get affected by that. And that's why I think we see so much self-destructive behavior in those communities. One is that, as you mentioned, homophobia is out there, and you have people that actually integrate that homophobia into themselves, and they have this horrible sense of self-hate. And it's important for people to come out and actually show good examples of how you can live and live successfully and be happy, even though you're faced with huge challenges in your life.
Candis Cayne is our guest, also Calpernia Addams. I have RuPaul on my phone. I've known her for a long time.
Me too.
Yeah, she's great, isn't she?
Yeah, love Ru.
How much did she change the landscape?
A lot. I mean, just at the very beginning, when I first moved to New York and I was drag, I mean, when Supermodel came out, it was huge. And then, RuPaul's Drag Race now is like, it's a sensation. And that does help our community too, because it shows a diversity of gay people and trans people out there.
The Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which you were part of, right?
Yes,
I'm a veteran. My guy Bill Clinton.
Yeah, I was in the military when Clinton was elected, and then years later, I was dating an Army PFC who was murdered due to anti-gay sentiments. So, on many levels, it was an important thing to me.
How great was it when you heard Barack Obama say the word transgender in the State of the Union address?
I cried.
Yeah. It's. You don't know what to expect.
I was like, what happened here?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
But that's, and my whole point all along is that's how much, Andrew, this whole thing has changed. The Don't Ask, Don't Tell was a big deal.
A lot's changed, but also the violence is still there, and I think that
for sure,
it's a huge problem. I mean, people that they have feelings, and people will become attracted to people that are transgendered, and then they'll take it out on that person because they think that they're sinful and they're bad, not recognizing that people are people. And,
that was just part of our landscape growing up as trans women. Oh, so-and-so was murdered. It was like, it was not even after a while, it was just part of our conversation.
I mean, if you think of little kids in school, like the boy likes a girl and the boy punches the girl.
Right.
Well, that grows up into, I can't handle these feelings, so I'm going to kill that person.
Right.
And that's what's happened, unfortunately, or beat them up in a horrible state, or just be...
Or tie them to a fence and burn them like this kid out in Colorado a few years ago.
I mean, there's just horrible things that happen. And, it's purely...
AIDS.
But that's why it's not just the issue of a person that has this issue. It's an issue for everybody to understand how they might react to it and what their own feelings are about it, and make sure that they're controlling their own behavior as well.
Right.
I mean, hate is hate, and it's awful. And a lot of it's out of fear. A lot of these people that actually act in horrible ways are in fear of their own feelings about their own sexuality and their own gender identity. And we don't talk about those things in school growing up, or really in the family environment. So there's a lot of confusion for people that even consider themselves normal, whatever that is.
Right.
And
I think we didn't talk about them because the labels were too easy.
Yeah, male,
tranny,
female, get married. That's it.
Yeah,
there's no other choice.
Well, that too, and then the other side of it, of trannies, which is kind of a cop term, I think, but.
It's, a lot of people, the mistake that outsiders make is that they assume that the trans community is monolithic, like that we all have the same background, the same goals, we all have the same thing going on. It's gender, we're human beings. It's an organic thing. So the reasons we transition, our path to it, the age we decide to do it, how far we take it, it's different for almost everybody in subtle ways. So it's a really diverse community that's still defining itself in a lot of ways, but it's exciting to see that we are at least getting out there with a public face.
A couple lines are still open. You can call us at 888-222-5222. Any questions for Candis or Calpernia? Where was I going to go here? You had a talent show, right? On Logo?
Well, I had the first out transsexual dating show, which it was a silly sort of bachelorette style dating show where I was the bachelorette and there were 8 guys competing for my affections.
I think I could have won
I
that
remember
one.
that.
Yeah, you would definitely have been the front runner. I think you're very alpha. I think you would sweep the other guys out. I have found love now, though. I have a wonderful boyfriend.
Yeah,
So.
yeah,
Just
cool
a little
guy.
bit too late, Pat.
Not me. Single again.
I told you.
Damn
Actually, I'm the one person whose heterosexuality is mentioned on the internet more than anybody's mind. But you never know. You never know. What about addiction issues with this transformation? Do you know a lot of people? Of course there are. That couldn't handle it, drank.
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah.
got drunk and did a YouTube commercial, but I'm not saying. But I mean, that have had to go to recovery, and then once you get in there, you have to explain who you are and all that. I mean, it creates
It's
a whole other.
vast in our community.
Doctors, it's intimidating to even go see a doctor, because even if it's for an addiction issue like alcoholism or pills or whatever, you have to out yourself as trans at a certain point, and you never know, you'll get laughed at by the nurses, or it's very intimidating.
The horror stories I've heard.
Yeah.
I've had experiences too at hospitals and.
Like what?
Going to see a doctor that a girlfriend of mine referred, and the doctor right in front of me said, "Oh, I don't want to see any more of those people coming in here."
No, that's not good, is it?
Stuff like
No.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're supposed to treat everybody, but
Yeah.
It's really tough, and
Well, we saw that with AIDS when HIV and AIDS came out. A lot of doctors wouldn't treat people, and
because even
you
the
know,
doctors didn't know what was going on.
Well,
Yeah.
but they take an oath.
rape-
There's a sort of the thing that really bothers me with physicians that refuse to treat people because of things like HIV or AIDS. It's not just their hatred or whatever, but the fact that they took an oath, and the public took a certain. They give a certain number of slots to a certain number of people to take that oath by being smart enough to be able to make the investment, go to school, and they have a duty to treat everybody, whether they have a virus that's infected or whether they have a moral
Right.
issue that they have a problem with or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's
Well, to me, hate comes with unintelligence. To me, you would think that somebody who's schooled and worldly and knows about the way life works, that they would be able to be open to every kind of life.
there,
and that's
there are
why
a
it
lot of
doesn't
really
make sense.
conservative.
So after the Candis Cayne and Calpernia Addams are our guests, and they are pioneers in the transgender world, which is probably bigger than we think, right?
Oh yeah, there are a lot of us out there who you have no idea, and they have no reason to talk about it. They just transition, they integrate, and there are trans men too, people who transition to male, and most people just blend in. I think Candis and I are just artists, and we're fabulous, so we chose to get out there and be entertainers. But most people are just normal, living a life.
Let's talk about getting actual transgenders in these positions in movies and TVs about transgenders. Does that bother you that they use actors? I mean, Jared did a hell of a job in bringing this to the forefront. And, on Transparent, I'm not sure you like that, but I can tell that you guys are irritated by that one. But still, it brings it out that you wish that somebody who's actually a transgender would play these roles.
And in my perfect world, trans actors would play these trans characters. I think, we're progressing along a path. There's work that has to be done. So I've jumped in and tried to educate, advocate, and participate where I can. But I'm really pushing towards that day where, like Candis, I mean, you can talk about being the first trans woman on network television, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was, it was an amazing thing that happened. I never thought that would happen when I first started my transition. I knew that I wanted to be an actor, and that's what I.
Elementary, right?
Yeah. Well, Dirty Sexy Money,
right?
And then Elementary now. But we didn't even have Google when I when I first started transitioning. So the idea that people that it would even be a subject on a show was kind of amazing. But it with everybody who's on a show, Laverne Cox, all these people that are good actors that are actually doing something in our community that way, it's going to broaden our base of roles. It's going to broaden the idea that there are actual actors that can play these roles.
Yeah, Orange is the New Black. I mean, that
Yeah.
That worked out.
And even people don't know it, but even back in old Hollywood, there was like Alicia Brevard starred in some Don Knotts movies. Nobody knew she was trans. Carolyn Cossey.
Don
Tula.
Knotts movies.
Yeah, she was in The Love
$500
God.
for Don Knotts movies. Go ahead.
The Bond girl, Carolyn.
Yeah, Carolyn Cossey,
Yeah.
Tula. There was Canary Khan, who was a folk singer. There were trans women. Billy Tipton was a jazz, female to male jazz pianist who nobody knew.
And actresses that I know of that nobody knows
currently who are working.
And just they've done really good work, and they don't share that, and of course we don't share that about them.
Don't
because
ask, don't
nobody-
tell.
Yeah.
I know more sports people who are actually gay and it won't come out because they're big, strong sports guys,
Yeah.
especially football players. But is it? I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Is there a certain Hollywood shock value that's better if a male actor, if a non-transgender person takes over that role? You know what I'm saying? I mean, Jared Leto's.
I think it's numbers. It's money right now.
No, but I mean, does it work better for Hollywood if somebody actually changes just becomes good acting instead of real life? You know what I'm saying?
One of the unique things about us is that we do go through a transformation, and once you get to Candis's or my point, I think we look great. We look like women that we are. If you're telling a story in a movie or television show about someone very early in the process who's still visibly, early in their transition, then, I probably wouldn't be the right girl to play that part, because obviously I've completed my transition. So maybe there are circumstances where you would need somebody who hadn't actually done medical transition.
By the way, we have a 24/7 treatment center number, 888. I want to ask Andrew about this. 888-601-6040. Please call that if you have any problems with addiction. Do we find a lot of people who come into the centers, the KLEAN centers, Andrew, who will bring this up and say, to a counselor, probably shouldn't even talk about it, right? But to a counselor and say, look, I'm confused and I don't.
I think
where do you send people?
Every identity issue is generally a problem with addiction, and most people that have addictions have some sort of identity issue. So it could be gender, it could be sexual identity, it could be anything. And the reason for that is a lot of people that are alcoholics and drug addicts, they're covering up something really deep seated, and they're developmentally delayed because they've used alcohol and drugs to avoid the issue. So it takes a lot of courage, number one, to even figure out what's going on, feel the feelings. It takes a whole nother level of courage to figure out what those feelings mean and get help with it. And then it takes a whole nother level of courage to do something about it. So that, what you two have been through has to be applauded for just
really
the
have
struggle.
a choice. I mean,
well, that's the thing. I mean, the choice is often suicide. The choice often is drug addiction, and people need to know that there's an opportunity out there where you can come to a place like KLEAN Treatment Center, and we're not, exclusively for any particular population, but where there's people that understand these issues, and we're not going to discriminate against
so
people for these kind of
because
things.
there is such a high suicide rate and attempted suicide rate in our community.
And it comes back to that issue that we started the show off with today, and that is shame. And I think in many ways shame is the worst because in this society, I always think people lie on Facebook and tell the truth on Twitter. and people get shamed more on Twitter than on Facebook because of that, because you can go on there and shame anybody.
Yeah.
Like during the fight last night, Jim Lampley's the greatest boxing announcer ever, and they're ripping him. Max Kellerman, somebody tweeted Max Kellerman is a Don Lemon of sport. Oh, no, I tweeted that. But we all do that. And
there's some things.
This mob scene on Twitter has got to stop.
There's some things that probably shame is an appropriate response to, and shame integrated properly and then resolved can actually lead to insight. So shame in and of itself is a part of every human being. The question is shame used by people with political power to oppress other people and to keep them down and not give them a way to resolve their shame in a healthy way and be part of the community at large. And that's what we see with a lot of issues, even with drug addiction and alcoholism. We see that, which you would think would be fully integrated and understood by society by now. And yet we see people who will literally rather keep using till they die or kill themselves and get better because they can't deal with the shame with their family members, with their spouses, with their friends, with their workplace. All these things add up and they become overwhelming pressures where they just think there's an easier way out. And the truth of the matter is that the easier way out is actually to get help.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me. I mean, I elected to be in a business and am doing quite well in it, in a business where I depended on strangers loving me. And I had no control over those strangers because I depended on some stranger I did not know to pick up the remote and turn on the Access Hollywood, the Insider, sporting event, the Olympics, or whatever. And then I got, famous, and then I thought, well, I need more of this. I need more of this. And I started to drink and use and everything over that. But once I figured out that I can wake up and be Pat O'Brien, the one I want to be, that's when I got better. And once I figured out that it wasn't a shame to have a little tiny sex scandal, it's kind of cool now, but it's not a shame to be an alcoholic. And the first time I said I'm an alcoholic, I was shamed. Like, I don't even think I said it at my first meeting.
Right, and this is all about identity exception, right? Or accepting your own identity. And that's a progression. You're not just born and you know your identity. You're born with an identity that develops over time. And so you actually have to do the work. And, like I said, in schools, they don't raise you to deal with issues like, how do I deal with my identity? It's
exactly.
like, right? It's like, that should
How
be a class.
How easy would that be?
Right?
Like when I was 7. Like, well, if you're feeling like putting on a girl's clothes, dress.
Right.
Like,
and this is often left to parents. This is often left to parents to deal with, and they often resort to antiquated ways and dogmas of dealing with these problems.
Luckily, I didn't have to deal with that. My parents
and parents have this built-in society look at how people should be raised and grow up, and what to say to your kids when something goes wrong. You never say, "Is everything okay? Are you sure?"
I mean, a lot of the heroes I see out there are parents who actually have unconditional love for their children regarding these issues, and actually work with their children to resolve these issues. And when you see that, when you see a parent with their child going through this stuff and actually having a successful outcome, I mean, that's just, to me, that's where we need to be, and that's where we need to get to more and more.
Dr. Spock missed this one, didn't he?
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, the stories I could tell you, because I've been a full-time entertainer and showgirl for like 20 years in the LGBT subculture and then out of it. And I've seen, trans girls who were kicked out by their families, couldn't get medical care. They were so into drugs and alcohol, like before they'd go on stage, they would throw up into a trash can. They would install a toilet paper roll next to their makeup mirror because they were doing so much coke. It was, this extreme stuff I saw, and they were afraid to get help over it even. And that was 10, 20 years ago. It's getting better now.
I mean, cocaine and alcohol are the perfect combination for these kind of issues because it actually gives you a sense of identity confusion a little bit, especially lots of cocaine, where you can actually get to the point where you see yourself differently than you really are, and it gives you a sense of confidence about it. Unfortunately, it only lasts 20 minutes, so you got to keep doing a lot of it. Yeah. And alcohol mixed with cocaine actually creates a different effect, but it makes you able to do more and more of both drugs. So
I used to say that a line of cocaine made me a new man. Unfortunately, that new man wanted another line of cocaine.
That's the problem.
Candis, thank you so much.
Thank you. I had a great time.
And Calpernia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks both for coming in. Really appreciate it.
I really, my heart just warms when I see you guys and what you've done for this community. And we hope to have you back on, huh?
Thank you.
Don't you look at me like that. Stop that, girl. I'm Pat O'Brien. He's Andrew Spanswick. Good show, Andrew. I mean, I think we covered a lot of good things today.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was very, very good, except for the fight, which was terrible.
The fight was terrible, and my horse did not win in the Derby. But
which became my horse, too.
I know.
Next week, we're doing gambling addiction because I lost both my bets, so...
I gave you the horse. I think the whole idea of this thing, the whole deal, is to try to stay in the present. Your past is gone, can't get it back. Your future hadn't happened yet, can't control it. All the money in the world today, right now is your moment. Stay with the moment. In the moment, you'll be fine. We'll see you next week.
Don't let addiction to drugs or alcohol steal another year of your life. KLEAN Treatment Center provides world-class addiction assistance that also treats the underlying causes and provides vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean. Live, kind, professional help is standing by to provide immediate assistance or to simply answer questions and provide guidance. If you or someone you care about is suffering from addiction, take action now. Log on to cleantreatmentcenters.com. That's clean with a K.